Are you a scaling SaaS founder?
Ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds and those who don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast, where community bonding is like making salsa together. Everyone throws in what they've got and it might be a little spicy, but the results are delicious. I'm your host, Jeff Maines. I help B2B SaaS founders like you grow from traction to scale. Here, growth is more than just numbers. It's about crafting a future-proof company, premium valuation, and leaders who build a business of significance while living epic, adventurous lives. Is your brand purpose bigger than a tomato? You think brand loyalty is just about having the flashiest logo or catchiest slogan, or maybe a celebrity CEO? Think again. The real secret to creating brand affinity and a loyal following is community-led growth. Last year, we did a double episode with Lloyd Lobo about community-led growth, CLG, and Champion Leadership Group, CLG. Coincidence? Yeah, probably actually is. But today, I am sharing about how building a thriving community can transform your SaaS business into a beloved brand with die-hard fans. This weekend, I went to 2 different festivals in East Texas with family. One was a tomato festival, and the other was the Texas Blueberry Festival. I guess they have to differentiate from all the other blueberry festivals. I don't really know. But this was the Texas Blueberry Festival. Both of them drew huge crowds, thousands and thousands of people, and it was hot. Texas summer sun, but it didn't matter. People showed up, had a good time. What in the world do tomatoes and blueberries have to do with SaaS? Well, earlier this year, a SaaS founder I work with wanted to start doing this community-led growth thing and really create a community to help break through a revenue ceiling. Brilliant strategy. And he was really struggling with how to do it. What do I rally the community around? How does it work? Is anybody going to show up? Is the purpose big enough? Is this it? Is that it? And we worked through it. And it took several tries, a few setbacks, a couple of iterations. But this weekend, he actually ran his first in-person event with clients and prospects, and actually called me while I was out there at the festival and was raving about how awesome it was and was incredibly excited for him. And now that it was on the other side, I was joking around with them about, not knowing what to build it around. And then the irony of where I was and thousands of people getting excited and spending the day out in the hot sun, around blueberries and tomatoes, fruits and veggies. And you can tell me that tomatoes are a fruit also in the comments. I don't care. I'm going to call it a veggie. If you want to be successful, your brand has to be bigger than a tomato. But brand loyalty isn't built overnight. It's about cultivating genuine connections and fostering a sense of belonging among your customers. Of course, the fancy term for it, what we're talking about, community-led growth. But it's all about leveraging the power of a passionate user base to drive engagement, retention, and ultimately revenue growth. Here's the challenge in today's marketplace. Traditional marketing and customer acquisition methods can only get you so far. There's a lot of noise out there. We got to find a way to break through that. But the real magic happens when your customers don't just use your product or want your product. They love it. They talk about it and they bring others into the fold. How do you do that? Well, here's a short version of what I helped him with to build that loyal following that's bigger than a blueberry. First, we want to cultivate shared purpose and vision. Bigger purpose than a tomato, bigger purpose than a blueberry. People connect deeply with brands that stand for something bigger than just their products. Define a clear purpose and vision for your brand that resonates with your target audience. That could be a commitment to innovation, sustainability, customer success, whatever it is. You look at Amazon, they are the most customer-centric business, and that's their thing. People rally around that. We look at Shopify. They are the most merchant-centric. 2 completely different values, 2 completely different types of communities, but both of them rally people around that. So it doesn't really matter what it is. It could be any one of those things. It could be something completely different. Customer success, sustainability, doing great things in the world, nonprofits. I love purpose-driven companies that do good in the world. It's a great way to rally community. But communicate this vision consistently and passionately to create a strong emotional bond with your community. Two is to foster authentic engagement. Create spaces where your customers can interact, share experiences, and feel valued. Could be online forums, social media groups, live events, but encourage open dialogue and actively participate in the conversations. By being approachable and genuinely interested in their feedback, you build trust, loyalty, and ultimately you're going to build a much better product because you're going to be with them and understand what it is they care about, how they're using it, what they want. And that just feeds right back into the product cycle. And third is to empower your community members. Turn your customers into brand ambassadors by giving them the tools and recognition they need to spread the word. Offer exclusive content, early access to new features, or rewards for referrals. And those could be cash. It could be lots of different things. There are a lot of ways to reward. But highlight user-generated content. Celebrate them and their contributions to the community. Show them as thought leaders. Celebrate community milestones. Those are pretty cool. You have, we just added, 200, 500, 1,000, 10,000 members to the community, whatever it is. Celebrate whatever those milestones are. It could be dollars generated. It could be customers gained. There's so many different things that you could celebrate within your community. But when your customers feel like they're an integral part of your brand journey, their loyalty will skyrocket. You want to fix churn? This is a huge way to do that. And here's the whipped cream on top of your blueberry pie. Brand affinity, it's not about flashy campaigns or aggressive sales tactics. I think it's just the opposite today. Building a community that feels a genuine connection to your brand. So the next time you're strategizing about growth, remember this. Your community is your greatest asset. How can you nurture it, invest in it? And then when you do that, watch as it propels your SaaS business to new heights. And it all starts with purpose. If you can get tens of thousands of people out in the Texas heat for tomatoes and blueberries, how much more for your SaaS that solves real world business problems and makes the world a better place? Embrace community-led growth. Turn your customers into a loyal following that champions your brand every step of the way. Our expert last week was Bob Kawabi, a dedicated leader and founder of Kawabi and Associates. They do virtual family office planning, specializing in empowering self-made business owners to achieve personal freedom and fulfill their sole purpose in life. Soul, S-O-U-L, very cool. And our founder last Tuesday was Masha Petrova, CEO of Nullspace. She is a multi-time founder and talented leader. We talked about building great teams, winning culture, and what voices to listen to and which ones to ignore. If you missed either of those episodes, go back and give them a listen. My guest today is Massoud Alibakhsh, multi-time founder creating the next revolution in human and machine communication called OMA Deus at Zeba Technologies. Prior to Zeba, Massoud was founder, CEO, and chief architect for one of the first cloud-based medical practice management and electronic health record systems called NewMed. Grew to 250 employees and was acquired in 2018. Welcome someone who solves real problems with innovative tech, Massoud Alibakhsh. Hey, Massoud, welcome to SaaS
Well,
Fuel.
thank you for having me. And what an apt name, because I'm all fueled up about SaaS and AI. It's all relevant now. Okay.
That's awesome. Tell me a little bit about your background and Amadeus and bringing real AI into the project management world.
I'm basically a tech entrepreneur. I'm an engineer by training. Electrical engineering and computer science is my background. And this is Amadeus is my third software technology company. I've started two other companies in both software and internet and healthcare space. And I started one back in the mid 90s when the graphical user interface revolution popped up, and sold that company in 2004. I started at the same time during the dot-com days in 2000. I started Newsoft, and that company was sold in 2018. And I'd been working while I was doing this at Newsoft with a group of my senior generals, if you will, really top people. We'd been preoccupied with this problem of communication, project management in the world of developing software for SaaS enterprise, because of that we'd moved to the internet world. And with software in the old days, you and I sit in our garage and just type something and just put it on a disk and distribute it. But that was it. It was project management. Let's keep the features and the bugs. Now we got an app, but maybe a 5-man team. But when you go to the internet, you have these massive teams of back-end people, front-end people. It's like it's the DevOps, and then the SaaS sophistication of teams of support and training. And so as your company grows, we had this trying to figure out how to manage the delivery of these products on time with the right features and the bugs. And we started with Jira and managing developers and Asana and marketing and Slack and writing code to mix all this stuff together. It was always a disaster. It was just maintaining. It never really worked. So we at the same time, we'd been working and we had this idea that we'd been developing about this ideal machine. And we knew that AI is going to give us a great solution. But so we started tracking OpenAI when they started in 2016. We were tracking Google. So it was like waiting for these big companies to solve some of these major problems, mainly the natural language processing. Because we developed this space, the core idea, and I actually wrote a white paper that never published back in 2017 on this. But fast forward, ChatGPT a few years ago blows up on the scene because they solved at least the natural language processing problem. And me and my team said, bingo, we got a good start. So we had this interesting architecture in mind that could solve a lot of problems. And so I guess this was a long discussion of my background, so of how we got here, but hopefully that's relevant. And so I sold that company. So some of my senior people, we all got together and we started this new company to try to create our ideal project management that integrates everybody in the same company together and eliminates noise to zero, and it distributes information to the right person at the right time, and it extracts the information from the right person at the right time. So no longer people knowing where the left hand, right hand, and manage as many projects as you want seamlessly, and not worry about where to store this video, where to put that specification, where to put none of that stuff. So we've actually created an architecture first, and then based on that architecture, which is really our innovation, we created the first, what we call object messaging and intelligent object product based on this architecture, the Omeo architecture. That is a comprehensive project management, collaboration, documentation, communication, all in once. And it has to be all in once, which is really composed of thousands of intelligent objects, or maybe even much more than thousands. So we can delve into the architecture, but I wanted to suggest maybe we should start catching up from last time, because I think it's been a while since we talked last time, right?
Yes. What's been going on in the world of AI?
So, okay, so there are two, like what's been happening with us as a company, and also what's been happening, because we're going through the normal process of company growth. We're crawling and then you become a toddler. So we've been crawling and we've been really doing a lot of R&D. We're a bit unusual as a startup, because startups come up with a business idea and you and I think, when that's good, we come up with 8 ideas. We just raise a little bit of money. We try it. Go out, try to figure out what the market says. You do a product market fit. And you finally throw away a few ideas. And then when something gets a little bit of traction, you go raise a little bit of money, and so on and so forth. That's the classical method of startup growth. That's not our story. This would not work for us, because we were basically quite convinced and had a lot of conviction about the emerging world of AI. And because we'd worked together for quite a number of years in the previous company, discussing the subject and carving out a path and trying to understand where this is headed and where the big revolution is going to be. And we realized we had a conviction that, okay, when AI shows up like this, we can build new software like that, and that's going to change the world. So this really drove us. But the ideas, and even if you formalize them and you put them in even like we published the first paper a few years ago with the IEEE on this. I published 2 papers so far. The last one came out a couple of months ago. And it's one thing to have abstract ideas and you can even formalize them and describe them in academic terms, but it's another thing to make an engineering piece that is a tool that people can use on a daily basis. Completely 2 different things. So we had to say, okay, all these wonderful ideas we had, how can you make them practically applicable to what people do every day? So how do you make that from that pie in the sky into something real? And that's a big engineering challenge. And actually, I self-funded. We self-funded the whole startup, and we didn't really expect to go out and make money or sell. We knew there's a lot of R&D involved, and I think we were, I guess, lucky enough to be able to have that kind of conviction. And our investors from previous company made a ton of money, and so they put some money in this. And so we spent about really a year and a half, 2 years just R&Ding. It's like researching, trying to understand what everything that I talk about now, object messaging, intelligent object, all that emerged as part of a long and wonderful engineering discovery process. Building things, throwing away, building things, putting together, a lot of aha moments, right? And now we've got all the answers. Yeah. And after all that, once we really were able to build, we said to ourselves, okay, so what should we build? What do you do with this architecture? What does that mean when AI is a platform? Because that's, what does that mean?
Right.
As opposed to tools. So I can tell you that and catch you up with the AI world, what's happening since we last talked. Video is going crazy. And there's this school of thought that LLMs are beautiful, they're wonderful. So there's a lot of competition on the large language models. We have the OpenAIs, we have the Gemini from Google, and then people have heard probably the marketing fiasco that Google went through. Then you have the open source, the books, Lima. Then you have a bunch of different models coming left and right. So that world is growing, competing. But the philosophy of if we solve a lot of these problems with parameters and processing power, why don't we pour more parameters and more processing power and solve all the problems in the world? So that's been one philosophical track. And we looked at that and we were intuitively, I thought that's a dead end. Any technology, any methodology is going to come to some point of diminishing return. And because of the architecture of LLM, they just basically, to me, they're word calculators is what they are. As I think I used that example. And they don't understand the notion of workflow, but the world, Mark Andreessen wrote a nice blog one time about the world is being eaten by software or will be eaten by software. And by software, he doesn't mean ChatGPT. He means traditional accounting software, manufacturing software, electronic medical software, manufacturing management software. That's what he's talking about. Traditional deterministic logic, screens that people put data in, hit save, that kind of stuff. And that's happened, which means that the world is permeated with logic, with software, deterministic logic. And that logic is, a lot of times on our apps, that's what they are. But more importantly, they're in all the companies that are producing all the products and services that we use. So that's the fabric of industrial aspect of society is software, traditional, filled with that. Right now, how do we get AI? The ChatGPT, just imagine, it's spitting out words and you tickle it with words. How do we get this and fuse them together? How do you bring that intelligence?
Right. Yeah. It's taking that traditional software and the large language model and combining those
in a
two
way
things
that
together.
you can't tell one apart. So you can't. So how do you sound? Now, it's interesting. One method has been, this is the ChatGPT. It just says this compressed bundle of words and knowledge from internet, and we just create logic on top of it, and we call them agents. They can execute things in logically. So that's one pathway, right? That basically you're extending the power of ChatGPT. So our concept has been, we say, no, look, see that? We don't need all the knowledge of the world inside one big ball. What we need is we need to look at traditional logic and look at this. You've got a combination of algorithms and data structure. And then if you follow the evolution of programming languages, we ended up with object-oriented the programming languages where you represent we try to represent external entities with some sort of object inside your program. And we created one more abstract layer on top of that and said, no, see, we need to have objects need to be at a higher level, saying objects. Yeah, of course, programs should be made up of objects. And by the way, object-oriented programming is not the most popular language in the world because it's somewhat a bit more abstract in developing that tool, as I'm sure you're familiar with. But we came up with this concept saying we can create objects that really represent entities of real world, and we can make these objects intelligent and self-aware. And to do that, all you need is just get the structure of the LLM and just put it into an X-ray. So the LLM doesn't think that it's the
Interesting.
whole world. It is just an X-ray. And there's logic, predetermined logic that the program has written, saying when the film X-ray is taken, that X-ray film becomes a data entity that belongs to that X-ray object. And then there's logic in that X-ray object that you and I, as programmers, written. As soon as the picture is taken, we check if X-ray is chest, take this authentication token and go left. But if it's a mammogram, take this other authentication and go right. Meaning going right and left. Where does that mean?
Mm,
Is the left takes you on the network to some trained X-ray engine and Mayo Clinic, and it hands the authentication token to it because now there's an entity called X-ray object. It was aware. It has an LLM. It knows that the engineer who took it was Joe, and the patient that it belongs to is Jane, and the doctor, the primary doctor, is Dr. Smith. It knows all that. That's standard coding, right? That's
that's
standard coding
impressive.
structure. But the algorithm tells it now that if you're an X-ray, go to this address on Mayo Clinic because you've got this authentication that it hand that token. They'll charge us, so don't worry about it, and they'll recognize that you came from us. And feed yourself, feed the film that you got into it, and just get the report that's in English. You can read English, read it. And by the way, when you read it, if there's any determination of cancer, immediately fly into Dr. Smith's box, which is your doctor, and raise your hand and say, I'm cancerous, I'm cancerous. Now, see, that's an interesting example of, imagine if you're making electronic medical record, for example, all these entities, your data entities become intelligent objects. They combine together to make groups of intelligent objects if they match together and somehow. And I always use the analogy of biology, since this is an inspiration by biology, because we're made this way. It's not a little file folder in the back of my brain keeping track of my liver cell, right? My liver cell is
Right.
intelligent and has everything it needs.
That makes a lot of sense. Just thinking about the body and how we're put together and the systems communicating with each other, that absolutely makes sense. But it's completely revolutionary in
But I
software.
agree,
The
100%,
architecture is
100%,
just
100%.
so
So now
different.
I want to get to the point that actually I want to play a little video for you.
Yes,
Because I'm sure you're familiar and your audiences are familiar with the All In Gang, the Chamath and J. Cal and Friedman and
sure.
David Sachs. Wonderful, great discussions that they have every week. And this last time they talked for the first time. And Saudi Arabia is putting together a $40 billion fund for AI. So they want to invest in AI. So these guys, J. Cal is
Wow.
going around saying, hey, what do you guys, if you was us, let's go around and see how would we spend that money on 40? Where would we put it? And David Sachs does a great classification of layers of AI. Where would you invest? And it's like it starts with chips. So you see the first layers of chips, the Nvidias of the world, AMDs of the world. They're making the chips, so that's the first layer. You can't really put money in there. There's a lot of players. It's heavy competition. Then there's the top layers, the people who buy the chips and make them into boards and stick them in their the cloud environment, the Amazons of the world, the Microsoft's Azures of the world. That's the cloud layer that's specifically using AI specific chips tuned for AI. So that's another layer. So they talk about that's an existing one, a lot of big players in it. Then on top of that is the model layer. The models like OpenAI's model or Gemini model. So that the open source model. So that's another layer. Okay. He gets to the fourth layer that he defines the fourth layer, saying the fourth layer is all the traditional software that needs to sit on top of this. Okay, so they go around and talk about this, and
Mm,
Chamath at the end of this does a summarization and he expresses his own opinion, but he summarizes the consensus. And basically, he says the majority of it he would put into this fourth layer, but he tries to define the fourth layer, saying this fourth layer, it just aches to be solved, but I don't really know how. I'm sure somebody out there, and he's saying basically all the software out there that we've got and spread, the internet stuff that we've been building, it seems like there's something wrong with them. It's like intuitively talking about that. This needs to be, it's not fitting in AI. So people are beginning to scratch on the surface and trying to define this problem. I loved hearing every word of the word because we wrote a paper. I wrote a paper that published 3 years ago, and actually I did an update on another paper, added a lot of other context of our discoveries about object messaging in another paper a couple of months ago that formally describes what this problem is and why we have to do this. And if you're willing, I'll quickly step into that and why, and give. So
Yes. Why?
we actually, if you think about the evolution of writing software, in the early days, the minute we invented the high-level languages, I'm going to skip all from machine coding to the high level. Our model of writing programs was this: take an input, do a computation, print an output. That was it. We had mainframes and outside, nobody had access to them. It's like those you'd have to, they were intimidating. You had in these rooms, special, they were expensive. That's how we wrote code. They were inaccessible to humans. Fast forward, PCs come in the 80s, and like late 80s, Xerox is doing some research. Steve Jobs get the hold of it. He invents Mac. He brings out Mac. For the first time, he changes the model of programming and computing. Basically, it's these objects on the screen. See, people don't remember that. A lot of the audiences, they're like, no, this maybe people my age, maybe you seem a lot younger than me, but you may remember some of those times.
Yes.
Do you remember the Mac
I do.
times? The first Mac? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. First and GeoDOS before that.
And the Mac was no longer take an input, do a computation, do an output. The Mac was, here's an object on the screen. It's a folder. It's a trash can. You as a programmer, you can actually go in there in this object. If you double click it or if you drop something on it, drag and drop it, it has a behavior. We call that an event. You as a programmer, you go in there and customize these behaviors. So you have these physical objects on the screen, and you, as a programmer, give it behaviors and you let them play together in this playground. That's the result of your program, right? So we went to event-driven programming and graphical user interfaces, which is a major revolution. So graphical user interfaces were a platform, and a lot of companies most companies, they were all this stuffy, don't come, not talk, I'm a big shot. A lot of hippies started writing code, and young people saying, no, it's all about GUI. The old companies that refused to get on this platform, they died. All their programs died. And that was the first opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah, you remember that. So all the companies that survived were these progressive, young, exciting, let's build stuff for this. And Windows followed because Mac proved that it's more accessible to users. It's not intimidating. And now it's going to expand the market. All these forces came and just bubbled that. We ended up having to throw away all the programs and rewrite them from scratch for this new platform. The model of writing program changed. That's once. This is the first revolution. Fast forward, we get to the internet. The internet comes up, and some people are scratching. We're buying books on Amazon. What is this? What we're trying to scratch our head. What is this internet? Young people don't have to worry, but when it's coming, people couldn't even define what this is. Good Morning America. All these hosts, I've seen episodes of they're still around. But now what we had to do, we had local area network computing. All this beautiful GUI software was sitting in the back of your office. And if I was working for you, if I had to go to work, I had to get to the office, unlock the door, get behind my computer and boot it up and do stuff. This internet said, no, you don't need to do that. You can actually be anywhere in the world and just connect a computer to the public network and you can run software. This is the promise. But guess what? We had to throw away all the waste programs that we wrote from the mid-'80s till almost 2000. And because this is a new world, new platform, DevOps, back and front ends, new architectures emerged. So it defined the way because the internet is a platform. So you want to be on this, take advantage of this of availability, high availability, anytime, anywhere, access to your logic. You need to rewrite programs. Another time, companies who refuse to do that, they died. Young, progressive. So funny enough, I started my first company at the GUI revolution, Medicap, based on GUI and open databases. Sold that in 2004. And I started the second one, the NewSoft, NewMD, in 1998. I started developing stuff while I was writing Medicat and built that out in 2000. So it's like I was really writing both revolutions in the beginning, the early stages. So I saw the difficulty in climbing this. And I think that informs my inspiration for this third revolution that's coming. Because when AI was the buzz, it's for all the people in the technology world, we've been tracking this for the last 15 years in excitement. And all of a sudden, the explosion came out a few years ago because of the Transformer paper. It was published by Google, and then OpenAI guys applied it in a certain way that they did. And then all of a sudden, boom, we solved the natural language problem. And then the stuff that you see. I do want to do a segue and go and say some stuff that have been going crazy on the AI side.
DOJ dropped a Sherman Act suit on Apple today, right as we were about to tape the program. It seems like Thursdays is the big news drop day now. So this DOJ suit outlines 5 alleged abuses, and they claim, obviously, that those abuses reduce competition while limiting consumer choice and raising the prices that consumers pay for their iPhone. We talked about this actually just a couple of weeks ago when we talked about peak Apple. The 5 categories are, very quickly, super apps, cloud gaming apps, messaging apps, smartwatches, and digital wallets. If you don't know about super apps, that's the one that's maybe you haven't heard of if you're listening to this. In Asia, they mention how Alipay, WeChat, and Paytm are super apps. What does that mean? You get 5 or 6 different functions in one app: social media, images, purchasing, getting rides, all that stuff. And when you have that, you can move from one platform to another super easily. And when it comes to messaging apps, we've all experienced the green bubble friend. The main argument of the lawsuit, pretty interesting. They explain, and it's a really well-written document, I read it this morning, that when Apple faces new competition, instead of lowering prices for consumers or offering a better deal to developers, they would, quote, meet competitive threats by imposing a series of shape-shifting rules and restrictions in its App Store guidelines and developer agreements. I've faced this every time I've invested in an app startup. They complain about the goalpost moving by Apple, and Apple shares down about 3% on the news today. I'm sure everybody's got some interesting thoughts on it. Chamath, you were talking about peak Apple just last week or the week before, I think. What are your thoughts on the lawsuit that dropped today?
To be honest, I haven't read it, and I don't really know like the odds of these things, just because it seems like some of this stuff is so clearly political. And I think that these things have seasons to it, in the sense that there are moments where these things are more likely to go in the favor of the company and more likely to go in favor of the government. The one thing I'll say is that these guys have been losing a fair number of these things. So they're 50-50 in their fight with Epic. They've basically lost against their fight with Spotify. They definitely are in a moment where people are looking at the profitability of these devices as the source of their long-term cash flow. And I think they realize that there's not a lot of growth because they haven't entered a bunch of new markets. So the real question is, knowing all of that, did they do something beyond what they've already always done to try to lock people in? And can they prove it? I think that's really where the government's case will come down to.
There. So hopefully I send you the link. You can insert that, and you could use them as the all-in tags as your main thing, and say something great and relevant or controversial about it, and we could brainstorm about the tag that you got. I think this is going to get a big hit in that sense.
Yeah, I like that. And essentially, it is all about the need for new communication model in the age of AI and how it optimizes the workflow-based communication. So it communicates with all of the traditional software that's out there. And so you're not interacting through mouse clicks or a GUI, but you're just asking questions and you're getting responses back, intelligent responses from the
It's
systems.
beautifully, yeah. I
I
love
get
the way
that?
you put it. Just so, I'm glad this is recorded, because you just so beautifully touched on every critical element about communication, about workflow, about optimization of communication, about natural language interface. Those are the key elements. And this object messaging, intelligent object, this architecture that we've come up with, really beautifully combines everything together in an amazingly seamless way. Now imagine the way you were describing it. You follow on, you're talking to a program that's written that way. So your interface with that program is natural language. That program itself is made up
Right.
of lots of super components, like liver and kidney, but those are super components that they have components. So the brain of that talks to these super components, and the super components, the super can talk to the objects, but they use natural language. They're constantly talking natural language in the way they talk to each other. And so even your accounting software in the back wants to talk to your manufacturing software, they can talk through natural language, right? So your overall super system is this, as we stole that we changed the Amadeus Mozart's name to an O to represent our object messaging. That's
Sure.
the name of the company, OMA Deus. That is the conductor. That the basic. So the user is talking to discuss what they want, their needs, their information, and the main agent understands all these other objects in terms of their functionality. It doesn't just like at a high level, and it knows if you say to your machine, say, I'm hungry. Right now, if you're hungry, you have to log in, you have to click on your diet app and it says, oh, you had fish today, and you see it on the table. I got to have chicken today. Okay. What can I afford?
Right.
What can I afford? You go to your budget app, you click now on your budget app. And how much can I? Oh, $50 flour for my girlfriend, 20 for lunch. Okay. So click on my restaurant app. So, yes, you as a human, you have to navigate, decide. But imagine an Omeo sitting, an OMA Deus kind of sitting based on an Omeo object as an agent, and you talk to it and said, I'm hungry. That's just when you talk to your budget app. Hey, what do you got for him before to your diet app? Oh, he had chicken yesterday. He's got to have fish. Okay, good. Fish. Good. Hey, budget app. What do you got for him? How much can you spend? Today, $20 lunch. Okay, restaurant app. Like, give me something local here. Ooh. And then all that happens in a flash, and you just said, I'm hungry. And then it pops up 3 restaurants for you, says, which one do you want to go? Okay, and you go, wait a minute, McDonald's? No, I want something fancy today. Well, we can't afford it.
Yeah. And it's great. It's great because what we want is an outcome. And it's not, we don't want to go to a bunch of places and look all these things up, or we'll probably even forget some of the factors that we need to consider in the decision, but it has awareness of all of these applications. And it gives us the answer in that
Yeah,
context of all of those
yeah,
other things. The other huge benefit I see for big companies is they don't have to forklift out systems that have been in there and are running their business and may have been for the last 10, 15, 20, 30 years. Ready to future proof your company and scale to new heights? Dive into the ultimate resource designed for SaaS founders and C suite executives. Champion Leadership Group gives you an unfair advantage in scaling up revenue and outwitting competitors. Imagine solving your biggest scaling headaches and hitting 5, 10, 20 million ARR and beyond. We take away the guesswork and the grunt work and replace it with framework by supporting you with our on-demand fractional C-suite team, a powerful operating system built into software, and a thriving community of fellow scaling founders. That's how we make it happen. If you're stuck at your current revenue level, this is your ticket out. Feel like your company is the world's best kept secret? We amplify your success. And hey, if you're crushing it already, but you're too busy to breathe, we got you. We'll free up 20% of your time in the first month. Now is a time to upgrade from traction to scale. If you're ready to work smarter, not just grind harder, schedule a 10-minute growth brainstorm. It's free. We'll pinpoint the number one thing blocking revenue for you. Visit championleadership.com, where leaders evolve and companies transform. But now you take this layer on top and it can extend those systems for quite a bit longer, but bring them into the world of AI without having to completely, get rid of those systems or reinvest in something new.
That's very true. And it's interesting that you started by saying that, yeah, it's great because you're alluding to the fact that we don't have to, we humans should not be involved in, because we even, just like you said, we're not real, we even forget one step. So these are just routine stuff. And I met a great friend today. She's a professor at Emory, Professor Johanna Goldie. She's actually done a lot of interesting work on history and counting words, and she's actually created a whole new field. And we were chatting about this, and we we're coming up with a consensus that, and the analogy we used was like, we're not supposed to be concerned about the car and driving and figuring out and watching the red light. No, we're supposed to be sitting there and looking outside and know where we want to go and enjoy conversations and look at the trees, look at the scenes. I not get stressed. That as an analogy, that's true about every other system that we deal with. And our Omeo
Sure.
architecture, for the first time, makes this possible. It shows the pathway of saying, if we start re-architecting all of our apps based on this model, we see the model of the GUI was quite obvious. Yeah, here's objects do this, but the AI is not obvious. As you heard, Chamath is saying, he was kind of admitting, he was feeling the problem, but I don't really know what that looks like, but it just feels wrong. This is AI. These are software. They don't fit. People are beginning to feel that. And this is a wonderful moment for us. It's a
Yes.
wonderful moment of affirmation. And the fact that we spent, as a company now, all these years we've been obsessed with it, but the last 3 and some years been tough in trying to solve engineering problems. We run into dead ends. You go, Are we fooling ourselves? Can this be built? And throw it away, start again. Throw it away until when you find the solution is extremely simple and beautiful and elegant, this is how you've really hit something true. Because especially when we didn't start saying, let's be inspired by biology. We developed this thing. We started looking at it saying, this is beginning to look like a human body. Yeah, why not? Because the creator created the world like this. It's just, you have to have distributive intelligence. We are moving from distributed processing to distributive intelligence. That's what Omeo is. So as an architecture. And it's funny now catching up with the AI stuff, the biggest thing, and I want to warn your audience about this. I was caught up surprised. I'm watching YouTube and then boom, Kathy Wood shows up. I say, I know Kathy Wood. I watch a lot of her videos. I've seen her conferences. And she's saying, we're celebrating the halving of Bitcoin. Scan this QR code at the top. Send your up to, don't send more than one Bitcoin, but in a fraction. And we will celebrate by pouring and doubling that. We'll just send one, we'll double whatever you send. Right? What? This doesn't make sense. Why would Kathy Wood do this? I'm like, go in there. Who's advertising? Is legitimate advertiser? Google, YouTube, yeah. Trace the advertiser. What? Somewhere in Pakistan? It doesn't make sense. Because all the scams all over the place. And then I see Michael Saylor doing the same video. I'm like, well, okay. So we got so good because in the past I could tell the AI generated. So I could see the artifacts. Yeah. If you got trained on, whoa, okay. Now we've reached the point that we are at the point that and actually this is the danger part. Now, those are the obvious acceleration of development of AIs in those specific areas, but I believe they're low-hanging fruits, and ultimately they're not, at least in this phase, they're not significant in the way they make impact on everyone's daily lives. What is going to change everybody's lives is the transfusion of traditional software with AI in a way that you can't tell them apart. And for that, you need a specific architecture. And that's the architecture that we've developed, which is the object messagingly intelligent object. And we're about to introduce this to the business world actually next week at the Venture Summit in Silicon Valley.
It is definitely revolutionary. And so many different things. And I like that, just the analogy of not being able to tell AI from real, and that the point that we're coming to where you can't really tell what's behind the software. As users, we don't care. We just want the outcome. We want the data. We want the information. We want to be able to make decisions. We want, results. And so to be able to do that and have that layer on top is definitely revolutionary. And where we can just ask and get the information that we need.
Not only that we don't care, we don't care, we're not good at it. Okay, so if I'm working in a company, like we're not reliable elements. Just think about it, because when you said it in your previous sentence that I have to, when I watch this podcast again, I have to write that down because you put it beautifully. Just you were on a good flow, and it demonstrates. And I've always had a challenge in trying to discuss this invention and the problem. But since last time we talked, it sounds like you have a very good grasp of it, because the way you put that better than me almost in that sentence. But we're not good at it because we're not reliable, because we're humans, because we don't have infinite memory. If I'm working with three people, so 4 of us are working, we're making chairs, I cut the wood, you paint it, and somebody else nails it, or whatever that process. If I have information about painting or about nailing, I know who to send it to. Okay, that goes to Joe, this goes to Jane, that's you could wrap. But sometimes even me, I'm busy. I got to send you some stuff on the back paint, but I'm busy. I'm talking to somebody, but that information doesn't get to you in time. We're on an assembly line, things get screwed up. So the information exchange has has two critical elements. The right destination at the right time. The timing of the information.
That's important.
Just as critical, because this is how you create traffic, right? Just crazy traffic when the information clogs everything up. If you think of it reminds me of the Charlie Chaplin's movie where he was working on an assembly line and he falls behind. Sure. Do you remember that? I don't know if it's a classic piece. But if you rid humans from the burden of processing information in order to route the information, because that's not my job. I'm a graphics artist. I know how blue goes to red, but now I have to read this and make sure that goes to Joe. Or I got to make sure that this file, I create these folders and organize them in a way. So this is this project, store it here, save that here. Oh, what did I put the updated there? Oh, this was there. So I have to process information in order to route it, process information in order to organize it and save it. This architecture removes the burden of processing information in order to route it or saving it from humans altogether, right? If this was a conversation you and I were having, and I was the primary doctor for that X-ray that just went in and read itself to the engine and found that it was cancerous and came to my inbox and said, "Oh, Dr. Massoud, I'm cancerous. By the way, you had a 4 o'clock appointment that was just in 2 minutes, but I already talked to your appointment object. It was not a very important one. I rescheduled it, and then everything's good. But I also went ahead and scheduled an appointment discussion with this specialist in South Africa and talked to his appointment object. And he's calling right now. I'm going to connect both of you guys here. Boom. And you and I are talking, right? And guess what? Now you and I are talking, and the x-ray is sitting there listening because it knows it's an x-ray. It knows it's a chest x-ray. It's limited. It's got constraints. And it's learning because it understands natural language. And it'll keep the transcript of this discussion at the end. And it'll keep even the video file somewhere for itself because all that data belongs to it. I don't care. That actually, in a way, solves the memory issue and the context issue that we are struggling with these large LLMs. If you think about it, because if every object,
because it has the information available, but it doesn't have to keep everything in memory because you do have some sort of a limit, a theoretical limit of how much it knows about a specific context at a time.
Think about it. If it has to know everything about everything that's happening and it needs to know about everything at work, where's it going to store it? How's it going to store it? What's your model of storage? Our model is saying objects that liver cell, it stores everything about itself. You don't have to worry, it just knows everything. So me, all the information about me, I store myself. I go talk to my mother. I talk to my friends. I talk to my boss. But I have a different segment. I segment them. I keep them separate. I organize all, and they're all my information, right? But I don't mix them up either. I don't tell my mother what I tell. Objects need to have that design where they basically segment their memories based on the stakeholder class. This solves all the problems in the workplace, all the problems of permission that just disappear in a magical way because now the object knows that. So it's like objects, when we finish talking, here's the x-ray. So at the end, you and I talk about, hey, let's get together and play golf. Oh, great. Okay, so the object says I'm playing golf. It's not my stuff anyway. So that's not even my information, but it's in the tape. But it's not about x-ray. And at the end, we just move forward, and it stores all that tape. And 6 months later, you're working, you're busy. Somehow something happens to that patient. The x-ray shows up in your box, or in my box. And I said, what do you want? For whatever reason, something happened. The stakeholder interacts with it and it makes it important. And the x-ray decides that's what happened to it in the event occurred. I got to see that. It shows up in my box. I go, what do you want? Who are you? I don't remember. Oh, you don't remember me? You don't remember you talked to Dr. Smith and you had this dialogue. Do you want to play that 5 seconds of video just to just jog your memory? Here it is. Boom. I play that for you. Oh, okay. No. And I belong to this patient. Yeah. And by the way, this happened. I want to know your opinion. Okay, here's my opinion. And just stores it and goes away. And based on that opinion, it could basically, based on its programming, it could go take a left or take a right. It knows the workflow. It knows how to navigate. And that workflow is deterministic initially, just like the way we've decided them. And it could even say, Dr. Smith, you need to talk to the patient. So I scheduled a call with the patient. By the way, there's a release of HIPAA, the guidelines of government about privacy stuff and some stuff. And I just read and just was fresh released. And I'm going to tell you, when you talk to the patient, make sure that you do this and this. Think about that. Think about that.
That is pretty impressive. Real-time coaching on what's happening right now.
About the latest regulations that have been proved now. When you talk, make sure that you covered on this stuff. So a lot of the problems that I've throughout my career, because I started developing software for the banking industry. Before that, I was building robots in the industrial area, but I shifted to software, and I went through permissions, and all these issues, and big financial systems for the banks, to small applications for individual users, to electronic medical records for doctors and clinics and practice managers, all kinds of systems. I've seen a good spectrum of the challenges of information privacy, permission issues, and the typical stuff that deals with workflow. That this model, I was just pleased to discover as we were implementing that, God, this is solving all these problems just automatically, in a sense. So that's been kind of a great, pleasant surprise.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant because you've got the algorithm and then you have the AI, and neither one of them will get us all the way there. Both of them have value on their own, but you put them together and it's a
Yes,
superpower.
I will share with you and actually some graphics that we put together. We are representing in a kind of a semi-formal way what an object in this world, the self-aware object, looks like, and what a super object looks like in terms of combination of algorithm and data and stakeholders and relationship. I'll share that with you as an image if you want to share it with your audience. It's not super technical, it's a high level. So I think it's accessible even to non-technical users, even looking at that image, to just get a feel for what these new intelligent computational cells look like, if you will, for lack of a better word.
I love that. We'll make sure and put that in the show
Yeah.
notes. Where can people find out more about you, about Ziba Technologies and Amadeus?
What we did is, thanks, we've tried to, our marketing people say you need to just stick with OMA Deus, and then Ziba Technologies is like formerly Ziba Technologies, but now we're changing the name of the company to OMA Deus. So you can go to the old
All
website,
right.
but it's the same, it reroutes you. So www.omadeus.com. You can sign up for a free trial of our enterprise product, but we are about to, in about a month or so, release a consumer type product that's for the general public and small groups and small companies. And if you want to organize a soccer team, or if you
Wow.
want to organize a picnic or a wedding, or if you're an attorney with 5 people, you want to manage that. It's like it's almost like a WhatsApp, like a communication system that is intelligent, and it knows how to create little tasks that become their own little entities, like individuals, and run around and they talk to people. So it's a very easy to use.
Outstanding.
So you can sign up for that, or if you're technical, you can sign up for free webinars that we basically do on a monthly basis that teach people how to develop new software in this model, because we want, and we also give free licenses because we've got a series of patents filed. But in the early phases, we're trying to encourage people to develop software based on this model. So we kind of get the industry going, and we giving away free licenses to qualified companies that are startups within a certain size.
Outstanding. Make sure and link that in the show notes as well. I can't wait until that's released. I'm ready to play
Well,
with
great.
it.
You'll be the first
Yeah,
one.
there's so many good
I'll
applications
come back
there.
to all of the wonderful people that have been great in helping us spread the word, and make sure that your audience gets some special treatment as well in a special word as a thank you.
Outstanding. We'll make sure and link that in the show notes as well. It, Massoud, so great having you on the show today. I love what you're doing and doing some just amazing things in with technology and AI. And so the use cases for AI, something I hadn't even thought about. And you're doing it's very revolutionary. So thanks for being on
It's a
SaaS Fuel.
pleasure and a privilege, and thank you very much for having me.
Thanks again, Massoud, for coming on the show and sharing your journey and insights. You can learn more about Massoud and Amadeus, and of course, Ziba Tech, but go to amadeus.com. Amadeus with an O. And of course, be sure and check them out on social as well. As always, all links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. And be sure to check out our YouTube channel as well. Full video episodes, some bonus content, training, outtakes, lots more stuff over there for you. Video shorts. Thought leaders share. If that's you, share this episode with your community. It helps strengthen bonds and foster shared interest. I greatly appreciate it. The team does as well. And you know what? The person you share it with, they'll appreciate it too. Everyone who shares this week gets a blueberry bounce house. Why just eat blueberries when you can jump into a giant inflatable one? Bounce your way to antioxidant health. Just watch out for the occasional squirt. Hey, I could really go for a blueberry smoothie right now. Anybody? Join us Thursday on our SaaS Fuel Expert Series, where my guest is fractional CTO Osri Cohen. We'll be talking about how to get great value out of a good dev shop, the biggest mistakes founders make when outsourcing dev, and also how to avoid getting burned by remote devs, maybe even if dev isn't your thing. And then next Tuesday, we have founder Jeremy Laceris. He's built and sold 8 companies in tech, SaaS, payments, and healthcare. He'll talk about lessons learned, purpose, and his next project, which is one of the biggest, most ambitious yet. Very cool stuff. I will see you next time. And as always, enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/SaaSfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.